Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers in search of creative teaching strategies delivered in the amount of time it takes to comb through Pinterest for DIY holiday decorating ideas, or maybe clean out that closet you've been meaning to get to. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm glad to welcome you to episode 20, all about giving students authentic audiences for their work. So what do I mean by authentic audiences? Well, consider this. Imagine you're putting together a lesson plan for a class about a poet, let's say Emily Dickinson. In one scenario, you'll be sharing this lesson plan with your graduate school teacher. This person will give you a grade on how engaging the lesson appears and give you some feedback. In another scenario, you'll be teaching this lesson to 30 teenagers during the first week of school, when every single word out of your mouth is a chance to either connect with them and draw them into your class or push them away and build a base for a terrible year. Which lesson plan would you work harder on? As teachers, we always have an authentic audience for our work. But to give that same experience to our students, we need to do some brainstorming and planning. Giving them opportunities to share their ideas and writing with other people, besides us, in situations where it really matters is going to amp up their engagement a ton. I've seen this a lot over the course of almost a decade of teaching. And in this show, I'm going to share some of the best strategies I've come up with for giving students authentic audience. Okay, so let's jump into it. Today on this podcast, I'm going to offer you 5 ways you can give your students authentic audiences within any English class. So these aren't specific to any one book or unit. They're just different ideas for things you could build in starting tomorrow. Hopefully you can find 1 or 2 that would be easy and fun for you with your set of students. So the first one is to invite guests. This is so easy to build into any curriculum that you already have. Almost every class is going to have a showcase project or 2 or 3 or 5. For me, the more the better. I almost always have a showcase project at the end of every unit. And pretty often I will ask the students to invite guests. So for example, let's say they've done a ton of work to prepare amazing presentations on the 1920s for a Gatsby unit. It's going to be great that they're going to share that with the class, and I'm going to be listening carefully and giving them a grade. But it's going to be even more exciting if they get a chance to invite, say, some of their favorite teachers from other classes or some younger students who are covering the 1920s in their history class right now, or maybe even their parents. When you're doing a really special final project, getting in that outside audience that students are going to sort of get bubbles in their stomach over is going to really help them to engage more. So whether you're doing a debate or a mock trial, or they've created some kind of amazing interdisciplinary art project and you're having a gallery, you're doing a poetry slam, a poetry reading, anything, any kind of major final moment that the students have been preparing for, let them invite guests and let them decide who to invite and let them do the inviting. This all just makes it more special and it gives more buy-in. You can be the one throwing out some ideas. You can say, okay, I know that the 9th graders would be interested in this. Do you want to see if there are some 9th graders who want to come? Or, oh, do you want to invite the school principal? He has a special interest in this. Or do you guys want to have this special showcase at night and invite your parents? You know, you're the impetus. You're the one who gets it started. But then they're the ones who actually take it to the next level and create the invitations and deliver them so that they have that buy-in. Another really fun way to give students authentic audience is to give them the whole world as their audience. And here I'm talking about doing blog portfolios. I've done this with students. I actually did it when I was teaching abroad in Bulgaria, and I taught them all how to put up a simple Blogger blog. Blogger is a super easy platform. It takes about 5 minutes to get the hang of building your first post. It's important if you're going to have students do Blogger or any kind of blog portfolios that you remind them they shouldn't put up personal details like their last name, their phone number, address. They can have pictures, they can have links to different things they think are interesting, they can add movies. All of that, I think, just makes it more exciting to them. But for your class, the real thing is going to be that they're going to probably be posting their writing. So whether you do creative writing portfolios or journalistic portfolios, or if you have them put up their literary analysis, once they've put up those blogger portfolios, they have the sense and the real sense that anyone in the world could be reading their writing. And if you want to amp it up a little bit so that they get direct feedback right away, you can have students in the class link up with each other and be leaving comments on each other's blogs. So I would have one section match up with kids in the other section, and I would say, okay, go in and leave comments on, 2 or 3 students in the other class's writing, and then they're going to come and leave comments on yours. And I actually connected my classroom as well with students in the United States. So we had a partner classroom in Kentucky, and they would come in and leave comments on my students' portfolios, and my students would go leave comments on theirs. So not only did they have this sort of general sense that, hey, I'm publishing my writing to the entire world, but they also were getting direct feedback from classmates and from students of their own age in another country. And I think that made the blog portfolio pretty special for them. Another great way to have students get the sense that their work is going somewhere besides to you is to have them submit to something. So whether it's an essay contest, a creative writing magazine, a newspaper that publishes letters to the editor, it doesn't really matter as long as it's something that your students feel interested in. So if you have students who are getting really passionate about a certain news topic, have them write a letter to the editor of the New York Times. Who knows? Your students could be published in the New York Times. If they are, really into writing poetry and your poetry unit is just on fire, have them look online and find different student publications for poetry that they could submit to. When I was in high school, my junior English teacher had us submit to the Rotary Essay Contest. And I worked harder on that essay than I've ever worked. Well, I don't know. Grad school, I worked harder, but harder than I ever worked in high school on anything. And I ended up winning the contest. And I still think of it as an early defining moment in the sense that I could be a writer. I've had my students submit to the This I Believe radio series on NPR, and several of their essays were published online. And I think that was really meaningful for them. So it doesn't matter so much what they're submitting to, whether it's something local or something national or international, but the sense for your students that they're working on something that this larger audience could see, or that they could win an award, a prize, and stand out in some way. I think that's really special, and it inspires them to do their best work. Okay, the fourth way that I want to discuss today is to add a performance element into your course. So there are about a million different ways to do this, and it's easy to get intimidated and think, oh, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to get a stage together. I don't want to deal with the audio equipment to do a performance. But it's so easy. It doesn't have to be a big technical fiasco. If you're reading a play, you can just have students perform scenes, and they can perform for the class, or you can invite people, as in the first way that we discussed for getting authentic audience. If you're doing poetry, you can have a poetry slam, poetry jam, an open mic night. Say you're reading the Canterbury Tales, you can have students write their own tales and perform them. You're reading short stories, have students write their own short stories and perform them. Writing reflective essays, have students perform little snippets of them as if they're doing a radio show. There are a lot of ways you can build in performance elements to teaching once you get started and once you get students excited about it. And on the day of the performance, don't be afraid to go big. Arrange your desks into like a fun arrangement that makes a little stage in your room, and bring in some food, or actually go to the theater and have students perform on the stage, or go somewhere a bit public in your school, the school foyer or the cafeteria or the coffee shop or wherever, so that it's just a little more exciting and students have the sense that, something is truly on the line here. So we've come to the fifth and final way to give students authentic audience. And this one is the technique of making your students the expert. We've all heard that teaching helps you learn. And as teachers, we know that. We really know that. Think about how and for whom you can make your students the expert. Have your seniors finally mastered the college essay process? You could have them go into all the junior classes and present this wonderful wisdom that they finally accumulated to the younger students and get them started on their path. Have your sophomores finally mastered the formal introduction? Maybe you can have them create a little video lesson for next year's class so that when they come in, they can be benefiting from this wisdom of your juniors. Maybe your final exam can see students recording podcasts or making videos about what they've learned and sharing those videos or podcasts via a class blog or a class YouTube channel. There are a lot of different ways that students can share their mastery. Once you get started thinking about it, this can be a really helpful way to give them authentic audience and boost their interest and engagement with the material. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to check out the show notes, just head to www.nowsparkcreativity.com and click on the podcast tab at the top of the page. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes so you'll automatically get the upcoming episodes on great websites for ELA teachers and 10 amazing reads to share with your students. The Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more podcast recommendations, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.